Jumping on into Genesis chapter 6. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married them as they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. One important note here, God laying out this 120-year lifespan is for the destruction of humanity, and not setting an individual human lifespan limit. Abraham actually lived quite a bit longer than this, much later on in the Bible. And in recent times, there was a French person who lived over 120 years. The reason I mention this is that a lot of Christians believe there's a 120-year limit to the human body, and nothing science does can ever get around that. This is a dangerous belief because we will likely be living into the 150s just a century from now. That would appear to discredit Scripture if you held the false belief of the 120-year lifespan. Going on, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards. When the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, the men of renown. Daughters of human is a reference to human women. Like how later on we see the Son of Man used to describe Jesus, and this term literally just meant some guy. It wasn't actually a special title. However, these sons of God were heavenly beings. The Hebrew language is kind of funny in the way it works like that. Many object that angels don't mate, and the Bible does confirm this. Yes, it says they don't, but it doesn't say that they can't. It does show that they can take humanoid form and walk amongst people, though. And you have to wonder how much anatomy is present when they do this. Is it enough for them to make a child? Apparently. So, according to another text that was even quoted by Jesus, which is the Book of Enoch, this book describes the Nephilim, children of heavenly beings mating with human women and producing hybrid offspring which are stronger and more intelligent than us. They were just as evil. In fact, their bodies were killed, which we will see soon. We'll get to that. Their souls remain as what we now call demons. This is all discovered in the Book of Enoch. It's not found in the standard 66 books of the Bible. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and every inclination of their thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. That was from the Bible, not the Book of Enoch. Consider the blending of the Nephilim with the human race and with other creatures. This is described in Scripture. God needs Jesus to be human, and he needs humans to be human. In the Book of Enoch, we see the Nephilim are not eligible for salvation because they are not part of God's creation. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race that I have created, and with the animals and the birds and the creatures that move along the ground. For I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. The fallen beings sinned against humans and other animals, as well as sinning against God. All of what we now call the tree of life was infected with foreign genetics due to these heavenly beings. Thankfully, Noah and his family were still pure, and that is who all modern-day humans come from. This account of Noah and his family, Noah was a righteous man, blameless amongst the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, and for all the people of the earth, how corrupted their ways. So consider how many kids people are having back then and their lifespans. This leads to massive population levels. There would have been billions. According to 2 different research organizations, it would have been around 5 billion people. However, that number just seems small for some reason, all things considered. Population density actually drives technology. With too many people to feed, you need to carry produce further. The whole land can't be farms. Eventually you need larger vehicles and more power. Therefore you end up with your horse-drawn carriages and stuff. Continuing on with more population density, you need more infrastructure to operate and coordinate all these vehicles carrying food products. Eventually you need artificially powered vehicles because you can't feed that many animals, and this actually escalates on to things like semi-trucks and GPS because you need to track all the food. To make a quick guess at what technologies would have been developed at a conservative 5 billion number, let's see in recent history when we had this population level. That was in the 1980s, all the way into the 1980s. So look at what was available then. Granted, this is not an exact one-to-one deal. It is good for a general reference. However, there is one thing. The Book of Enoch describes fallen angels teaching their children and human society new ideas and technologies. Then, when they look back at the ancient legends of magic, these magical devices, whose function matches modern-day technology, I believe that the nuclear weapons and some equivalent of the internet actually existed before the flood. That just makes sense. There is an ancient account of a Black Mirror style device that would be filled with some kind of crystal, and that would be filled with an energy, and that would give you access to all of human knowledge. This is not from the Bible, this is from ancient accounts of magic. The thing is, a cell phone technically fits that description. The processor and other components are made of silicon, which is a type of crystal. Electricity going into the battery is a form of energy, and the screen is a black reflective surface. So it is a black mirror with crystals that can be charged up and give you access to all of human knowledge, the internet. I believe that's what a lot of these ancient stories of magic are talking about. Moving on with the scripture. So God said to Noah, I am to put an end to all the people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. Again, the earth is filled with people, and they are violent. This could be resource scarcity, leading to what we see in war today. All I have to say is the word oil, and most people will immediately think of war and violence. Given this, God continues. So make for yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 100 cubits or 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door on the side of the ark, and make lower, middle, and upper decks. That comes out to 144 meters long, 24 meters wide, and 14 meters tall, or 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet tall. This is the size of a very small modern cargo ship. It's not that big. That'll be important later. The Bible continues with God saying, I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth and destroy all the life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it, everything on the earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and every kind of creature that moves on the ground, you are to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. Now, of course, I pointed out the size of the ship would matter. Every species of animal simply would not fit on the ark. But when you look at how natural selection and random mutations cause new species to pop up within one kind of animal, such as the canine ancestor that gave rise to wolves, dogs, and other stuff, or the feline ancestor that gave rise to lions, tigers, jaguars, and all that sort. It is possible to hold that each kind is more the family level of creature and not species level of creature. This would fit within the ark. That would fit very easily, and there would be plenty of room left over for everyone. And you would need plenty of air, given raising up to the height of the highest mountain, even with the atmosphere being compressed, it would still be kind of thin air. The Lord said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you righteous in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal, male and its mate, and 1 pair of every kind of unclean animal, a male and its mate. Also 7 pairs of every kind of bird, male and female, to keep their various kinds alive throughout the earth. 7 days from now I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature that I have made." And Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. The higher number of clean animals was for food use, obviously. Goats, lambs, and others for milk and meat. And other animals were to simply rebuild ecosystems after the flood. If you know anything about ecology, geology, and everything, birds play a key part in seeding the earth. Now, Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came onto the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife's sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, the birds and all the creatures that move on the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark, as God commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the floodwaters came onto the earth. No, Noah did not have to push lions, tigers, and bears onto the ark by hand. God instructed them to arrive at the ark and enter it. And I'm sure God picked the purest genetically of each kind of animal to survive. That way you have the best genetic diversity available within each specimen. In the 600th year of Noah's life, or the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens opened, and rain fell on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, the floodgates of heaven simply refer to heavy rain. What's really impressive here is water coming up out of the ground, of which there is a lot. This is fairly recent knowledge, within the last decade or two, I think. We know there's a lot of groundwater. Scientists even speak of what they call underground oceans. What would push this water out? Can't exactly answer that right now, but perhaps a temporary heating of the Earth's core due to a microwave beam from space hitting the other side of the planet could boil the water up and out. Of course, that would burn parts of the planet, but that would never be known because those people did not survive to tell the story. That's why I say we really can't answer these kind of questions, because we only have the account of one family. Maybe a slight change in gravity would cause it to float up. I don't know how God did it, but I suspect the ice caps probably melted too. You always hear scientists in modern day talking about global warming possibly melting the ice caps, causing mass flooding, not necessarily up to the highest mountain, but getting there. God can flood the earth better than we can, but we're working on it too. On that very day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, and each creature that moves along the ground according to its kind on the ark. Every bird according to its kind, everything with wings, pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living kind, as God commanded Noah, and thus the Lord shut them in. Hey, it was a big door, I'm sure. With God shutting the door, you can be sure it's safe. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth. As the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth. The ark floated to the surface of the water and rose greatly on the earth. All the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 15 cubits. Just trying to think in my head real quick how big that is. A cubit is from the tip of the middle finger to the elbow, which was, I don't know, 10 meters. Anyway, some people mistakenly believe that this was a local flood. To help with this, God points out that the flood covered the mountains all over the earth. If you still don't believe the world could flood, ask a scientist what the worst case scenario for global warming is. So, yeah. Every living thing that moved on the land perished. Birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm on the earth, and all of mankind. Everything on the dry ground that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth is wiped out. People, animals, all the creatures that move on the ground, and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. You might ask why it stayed flooded that long. Almost half a year. So I'll remind you that people likely had smaller boats other than the ark, which they probably tried to ride the flood out in. The extra time was basically to wait for that to die off. I'm sure Noah wasn't the only one that had a boat. There were boats already in the water when the floods came in. They probably survived for quite a while. And I think I'm going to call that it for this video. It's gotten pretty long. I will start up with chapter 8.